What is up, Broncos fans? The Denver Broncos Show back here again to recap day one of the 2017 NFL Draft. Talk about what the Broncos did last night with pick number 20 in round one again of the 2017 NFL Draft. The Broncos, I thought, did a really good job of being patient last night. There was a lot of rumblings and reports in the build-up to the draft that we were one of the teams really trying to trade up into the top 10, even top 5 at one point. Did a good job of staying patient, and the board fell to them pretty perfectly, honestly. At pick 20, there was a plethora of really good talent on the board, a lot of great prospects at pick number 20. So I do give John Elway and company kudos there. Thought they did a great job of not overpaying and moving up, letting the board fall to them. And it really worked out for them. Again, there was a lot of great prospects on the board at selection number 20 when we were on the clock. But ultimately, the Broncos, the player that they selected was Garett Bolles, offensive tackle out of Utah, with that 20th selection. 6'5", 297 pounds, 24 years old again, out of Utah. Not surprised at all by this pick. Garett Bolles and Ryan Ramczyk were the two prospects I think that I saw the most connected with the Broncos in the lead up to the draft. And all the mock drafts I read, it seemed Cam Robinson, Ryan Ramczyk, or Garett Bolles, one of those three names, what people had pegged going to the Broncos at pick number 20. And look, I understand this pick. We needed an offensive tackle badly, primarily a left tackle. Garett Bolles obviously fills that need, and this is a guy you hope will develop into a franchise left tackle and hold down that left side for the Broncos for the next several years and many years to come. But I'm not a fan of this pick for the simple fact, given the other prospects and other options that the Broncos had made available to them at pick 20. I think there's plenty of other better routes for the Broncos to go than Garett Bolles. And again, that's not a knock on Garett Bolles as a person. That's not a knock on Garett Bolles as a player. I actually like Garett Bolles as a prospect. I think he's without question in terms of upside. You can make an argument he's the best left tackle in this draft just from an upside standpoint. He's no question the most athletic offensive lineman in this draft. He's got a great story, a kid that's overcome a lot, and you obviously got to respect him for what he's overcome and the fact that he's gotten to this point in his life and turned things around. And the moment with him carrying out his newborn son and holding him up in the Bronco jersey, that was all cool and dandy. But you look at the other guys that were available on the board for the Broncos at pick 20. You got Reuben Foster staring you in the face. You got Dalvin Cook, David Njoku, Evan Ingram, Jabril Peppers, Tack McKinley. All of those guys I would have rather had than Garett Bolles. Again, I don't really necessarily have a problem with Garett Bolles being the pick and us taking Garett Bolles because I like Garett Bolles the player. I like Garett Bolles the person. And I think he fits, obviously, a huge position of need for the Broncos, but given the other guys that were on the board, I think it's just a huge mistake, and I think he kind of reached a little bit here for Bolles. And you got people out there saying, well, there was no way Garett Bolles was going to drop that much further down the board, and I do agree with that. But you look at like what the Niners did. They were picking at number 2. They traded back one spot to number 3 with Chicago. Still were able to get the guy they wanted in Solomon Thomas and got 3 additional picks out of it to then in turn trade back into the first round and get Reuben Foster. I think the Broncos would have been a lot smarter to do something along those lines. Trade back from pick 20, maybe down to pick 21 or 22 with a team like Atlanta, who is so desperately trying to move ahead of the Giants to get Evan Ingram, and then get a couple additional picks for you to utilize in day 2 and 3, and then also get Garett Bolles as well. Still get your guy. I think that would have made a lot more sense and made me a little more high on this selection of Garett Bolles. And again, just kind of the reasoning that the Broncos had, and John Elway, saying that Garett Bolles, this was always their guy from the get-go, and they even considered trading up to get him. I mean, to me, that's just idiotic, and to hear that from a guy like John Elway, it's quite surprising. And again, just to select Garett Bolles, given the guys I just mentioned that were still left on the board, some of them are still on the board as well, I think it's just an enormous mistake. But nonetheless, I do like Garett Bolles, and I get why we made this pick. He's a guy that you hope day one starts at left tackle, him and Tyson Brilo, probably even Michael Schofield, maybe even Menelik Watson, Donald Stevens. All those guys are obviously going to compete for the left tackle and right tackle starting jobs next year. And we needed depth, obviously, at the offensive line position, primarily at the tackle position. So, again, you understand why we brought in Garett Bolles, and there's a lot to like about this guy. You're talking about a guy who is a great athlete for an offensive lineman. Definitely the best athlete in terms of the offensive lineman class in this draft. He's got elite movement skills, great feet. This is a guy that probably has some of the best feet, if not the best feet in this draft. Great lateral agility. I mean, everything you want from an offensive lineman or potential franchise left tackle in terms of athleticism and movement skills, Garett Bolles possesses, and that was evident at the combine. I mean, this guy, he ran a 4.9 540, which is great for 300 pounds, and an even freakier number. He ran a 4.55 20-yard short shuttle at 300 pounds. Again, that's freaky. And again, that really shows, again, the movement skills, the quick feet that he possesses, and the lateral agility that he possesses. And this is a guy, you love the demeanor that he has. This is a guy that plays with a mean streak, plays with some nastiness, as you've heard people mention that over and over again when already breaking down Garett Bolles' game. And this is a guy, he's great at finishing off blocks. He plays through the whistle. And at times, it definitely gets him in trouble, but I think we kind of need that personality and that type of physicality, so to say, added to our offensive line. We already got a couple guys like that in Ronald Leary, even Max Garcia to an extent. So to add another guy like Garett Bolles, especially to anchor hopefully your left side of your offensive line, I think that's huge for us. And this is a guy, because of his movement skills, because of his feet, this is a guy that you hope you can mold into at least an adequate pass blocker. And he's a guy that, you know, he has shown he's very fluid in terms of his athletic ability. So for him, he easily can get to that second level or even that third level, again, with fluidity or with ease because of his athleticism skills and because of his movement skills. And again, that gives you hope for the future that this guy can develop into a pretty polished offensive tackle, primarily a better pass protecting left tackle, because to me that's where he's going to be a huge liability day one, is in pass protection, because I think where he's going to upgrade the Broncos day one is in the run blocking. I think he's going to improve our run game massively. You know, as I mentioned in my draft preview, the Broncos clearly had a problem last year in terms of running the ball. You know, we were ranked 27th in rushing yards, obviously rushing offense last year. We were in the bottom half of the league. You ranked 29th in yards per carry, only averaged 3.6 yards per carry last year. You were 21st in rushing touchdowns, only at 11, and you were tied for dead last in the league in runs of 20 yards or more, only at 4 runs of 20 yards or more. Garett Bolles should help that dramatically from day one. I mean, here's just a little stat for you. You look at Utah last year, their offense, when they ran off the left tackle last year, they had 49 rushing attempts off the left tackle, excuse me, last year. In those 49 rushing attempts off the left tackle, off Garett Bolles, they compiled 203 yards, averaged 4.1 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns. So clearly, again, this is a guy that's going to add some value in terms of the run game and the run blocking. He's going to improve us dramatically. You love the physicality he brings with. And again, you love the story. This guy, you know, troubled background, was in and out of jail as a teen, you know, actually served a religious mission, I believe, here in Colorado Springs for a couple of years, turned his life around, went to Utah, obviously had a great year last year, and now is a first-round pick and hopefully a future franchise left tackle for years to come for the Broncos. So you love the mental toughness that this kid has shown. However, there's a lot to work on, and there's a lot left to be desired, so to say, with Garett Bolles' game. First and foremost, he might be physical, he might be nasty, he might play with a mean streak. He desperately needs to improve his strength, primarily his lower body strength. Again, he's 300 pounds, 6'5", he's got good size, but he's barely 300 pounds. So getting into the gym over this spring, over this summer, this offseason, going to be huge and probably the most important thing going forward for Garett Bolles' development. And then just from a technical standpoint, this guy plays with a high pad level at points. Again, he's already kind of got a strength deficiency. You add in the fact you play with a high pad level, that's not a good thing, again, going forward at the next level. So playing with a lower pad level, improving that's obviously going to be something that he needs to work on. This is a guy that also, he kind of reaches sometimes for rushers. When he blocks, he overextends himself. That's going to be a huge no-no at the next level. So overall, just his technique, again, primarily in the pass blocking, there's going to be a lot of work for him to do. And then again, getting stronger, primarily his lower body strength, and hitting the weight room is going to be big for him. And again, while he might improve us in the run blocking, I'm not really sure he improves a lot of the other areas of deficiency we have in terms of our offensive line, primarily with the pass blocking. Again, this offensive line gave up 40 sacks last year. That was 9th most in the NFL. This is a guy that's not going to come in day one and lock down that left side and protect Paxton Lynch or Trevor Simeon's blind side with great consistency day one. So that kind of concerns me. And Garett Bolles, another guy, a lot of mental mistakes. This is a guy, again, he plays through the whistle a lot, which is great. You love that toughness. You love that physicality. You love that nastiness. But it gets him in trouble at times because he gets penalized a lot. And you look at the Broncos again, you had 119 penalties last year offensively, 6th most in the NFL. A lot of that came from the offensive line. So a lot of these weaknesses that you have along the offensive line, he kind of accentuates those weaknesses. Again, you gave up 40 sacks last year. He's not going to improve your pass protection that much right away, at least. And you're one of the most penalized offensive teams in the league last year, again, primarily because of your offensive line. This is a guy that has problems with mental mistakes and making a lot of penalties. And he's going to get thrown in the fire day one, which is something that I'm not sure I'm necessarily thrilled at. I mean, you look at some of the pass rushers he's going to be facing. Obviously, he's going to be facing Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Justin Houston. He's going to be facing those guys twice a year for the next several years to come. But just looking at next season, obviously going to face those guys. But he's also going to face the likes of Carlos Dunlap when we play Cincinnati, Ryan Kerrigan when we play Washington, Jason Pierre-Paul when we play the Giants, Cameron Wake when we play the Dolphins, and Muhammad Wilkerson when we play the Jets next year. That's a murder's row of pass rushers for a rookie offensive lineman to go against. So that kind of worries me. You're going to throw this guy right into the fire again day one against some hefty competition. And again, does he really improve the things you're bad at? Again, you're one of the worst passing teams as well last year. 22nd in passing yards, 27th in total yards. You're tied for 28th in third downs made, 31st in third down conversions, tied for 26th in passes of 20 yards or more. Those are things that areas of our offense that still need to be addressed that he's not going to improve. He's going to help a lot in terms of making you more physical up front, making you more nasty, so to say, and having your offensive line play with more of a mean streak. I mean, that left side, him and Leary, those are two brutes on that left side, and he's going to help a lot in the run game. Again, did a lot of great things for Utah's rush attack last year, but there's a lot to be desired here still. And Garett Bolles, this is a guy that's older than me. I mean, Garett Bolles, he's 2-3 months older than me, and he's a rookie, 25-year-old rookie in the NFL. Not sure you want that. So there's a lot of question marks I have about Garett Bolles, but again, there's a lot to like about him. He's a developmental left tackle, and hopefully 2 to 3 years from now, he's a stalwart for us at that left tackle position and solves that glaring need for us that we currently have. And you look at our projected offensive line going into 2017, at left tackle, you're hoping it's Garett Bolles, then left guard, Ronald Leary, center, Matt Paradis, right guard, probably going to be Max Garcia, and right tackle, Menelik Watson. That's a hell of a lot better group than the one we had last year. So, all in all, I understand the pick. I like Garett Bolles for the most part as a player and as a man, as a person. I see the upside. I just am not the biggest fan of it, given the other guys that were available on the board for the Broncos, and because I think there's a lot of things that he does poorly that we already do poorly, and he's just going to only accentuate our weaknesses rather than improving our strengths, and that kind of worries me. So we look ahead to day two. The Broncos, obviously, we got some, ammo in day two to utilize. You got 3 picks, pick 51, pick 82, and pick 101 in rounds 2 and 3. You obviously solved the offensive line spot in round 1, so you hope the Broncos in round 2, you desperately need to add some speed and explosiveness, man, on that offensive side of the football. I mean, desperately need to look to address that. So that's what I hope to see the Broncos target in day 2 of the 2017 NFL Draft in rounds 2 and 3. Again, adding some juice, so to say, on the offensive side of the football. Just adding playmakers, man. Whether it's a defensive player or offensive player, the Broncos need to add a playmaker in rounds 2 and 3. And I hope they do. But I definitely am worried. John Elway is a guy, as great as, he's been as a player for Denver, and great things he's done as an executive, and, he's done so much for this organization. Drafting-wise, he hasn't been necessarily that great. I mean, especially in rounds 2 and 3 primarily. I mean, you look at John Elway, since 2011, since he took over for the Broncos as the president of the football operations, he selected 14 players in rounds 2 and 3, again, since 2011. So that's 6+ drafts, 14 total players he's taken in rounds 2 and 3. And none of them, 0, have become Pro Bowlers, and 7 of them are only on the current roster. So half the players that John Elway has selected in rounds 2 and 3, again, since 2011, as the Broncos GM, president of football operations. Half of them aren't even on the roster. None of them had made the Pro Bowl. So John Elway drafting in the second and third round, historically, not been great. I mean, just to rattle off a few names that he's drafted in the second and third round, you're talking Nate Irving, Raheem Moore, Orlando Franklin, Monty Ball, Brock Osweiler, Ronnie Hillman, Cody Latimer. This is a guy who's got 16 career catches in 3 seasons. Michael Schofield, probably the worst offensive lineman I've ever seen. You're talking about Tyson Brylow and Jeff Heuerman. These are 2 guys that have barely played in, I think, combined, I think they both only have 12 career games they've played in. You got Adam Goetz, is of course our second round pick for last year, couldn't even play. So again, John Elway has historically not been the best drafter in the second and third rounds. So really intriguing to see what he does this year in 2017. Again, 0 Pro Bowlers for John Elway in the second and third round of 14 picks and players that he selected in those 2 rounds since 2011, taking over the Broncos. So leave me a comment below, guys. Who do you want to see us take in day 2 of the 2017 NFL Draft? Looking forward to it. Welcome Garett Bolles back to Colorado. Welcome his family here. Look forward to seeing him hopefully put people in the dirt, as he said, in Denver for years to come. Appreciate you guys watching, and that's it for me. Go Broncos.